Hello and welcome. Here's what's happening right now. The Prime Minister maps out the first 5 major projects across the country.
How can we do it bigger? How can we do it faster?
The national blueprint and the mixed reaction from east to west.
We were able to track his movements as he moved to the other side of the building.
Plus, the expanding manhunt in the Charlie Kirk killing and how a Canadian was misidentified online.
But Parliament that is not ours.
And a political visit to Alberta by Quebec Separatists spurs anxiety.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
I'm Todd Vanderheiden. Sandy is off today. Canada needs to build big, a key promise made by Prime Minister Mark Carney when he was elected. Today, he announced the first 5 major projects: energy, mining in the west, expanding ports in the east. Carney says it's all about nation building. Here's a closer look. A big expansion of LNG production, liquefied natural gas in Kitimat, British Columbia. A nuclear power project just east of Toronto, touted to be the first small modular reactor in a G7 country. Plus, expanding the Port of Montreal in Contrecoeur, Quebec, the first net zero copper mine in Miquelvena Bay, Saskatchewan, and expanding the Red Chris copper and gold mine that's located in northern British Columbia. Our coverage starts with CTV's Abigail Beeman, who is in Edmonton for us, where the announcement was made today. Abigail.
Todd, the Prime Minister says this is about changing the government's approach to nation building, from asking why to asking how. Mark Carney tried to drive home his message.
It's a single point of contact to get nation-building projects built faster.
Announcing the first 5 projects and more in development, led by a former energy executive at the newly opened Major Projects Office.
To get to one project, one review, one decision in a 2-year time frame will set Canada apart globally.
The Prime Minister acknowledged several are already further along, like LNG and Kitimat. He says in all cases, engagement with Indigenous groups is very advanced, and within 5 years...
Yes, some of those projects, shovels will be in the ground.
But the opposition leader points out no shovels yet.
He's not permitted a single major mine, pipeline, nuclear plant, or anything else. What he's done today is announce that he's going to send an email to an office that isn't even fully staffed up yet, which will one day consider possibly approving 5 projects. This is pathetic.
As for money in a new spend less, invest more environment, the Prime Minister says being more efficient doesn't cost much. It's not clear how much Ottawa will spend otherwise.
We expect with the vast majority of these projects that federal dollars will catalyze many multiples of private dollars.
CTV News asked the Prime Minister what success looks like. He said, in part, it's about changing attitudes so people believe Canada can build big. He also says the next list of projects will be out by the Grey Cup. That's November. Todd?
Abigail Beeman in Edmonton. Thanks, Abigail. Well, next to immediate reaction to these mega projects that the Prime Minister is spreading across the country, including a planned second phase, CTV's Mike Lecouture is in Ottawa with what some premiers and Indigenous leaders are saying today, Mike, about this plan.
Well, Todd, what's clear in today's announcement is that the federal government has tried to please most of the provinces with a project in every region. And the reaction from premiers has been positive.
Finally, they get it.
Alberta's premier is encouraged by the Prime Minister's plans, even though a pipeline wasn't part of them. The province's Pathways Plus carbon capture project is on a secondary list, and Danielle Smith is signaling she's going to work with Ottawa.
Hopefully in time for that next tranche of announcements at the Grey Cup. But I would just encourage Albertans to not lose faith in the process. Let's work together on it.
Upgrades to the Port of Churchill in Manitoba is also on that secondary list. It's the only Arctic seaport in this country serviced by rail.
Last few weeks, we started to see those GDP numbers, employment numbers across Canada start to show that our economy needs a jolt of life. And I think one of the ways that we can do that is by building up the full potential of Churchill.
Not everyone is pleased with these projects. The Union of BC Indian Chiefs believes the federal push to double LNG production as a nation-building project is trampling on Indigenous people's rights to free, prior, and informed consent.
There was absolutely no effort at any substantive consultation with the First Nations people before these projects were contemplated, planned, and initiated.
Grand Chief Phillip has also criticized the Prime Minister's Indigenous Advisory Council for major projects, saying it does not replace the legal duty to consult with First Nations peoples within the territories impacted by future projects. Todd?
Mike Lukather in Ottawa. Thanks, Mike, for that. Well, there's a lot at stake here for Mark Carney. He says it's time to get things done. There will be controversy for sure. Our chief political correspondent, Vassy Capello, standing by in Ottawa. And Vassy, we want to show to our viewers this planned phase 2, because there are other projects coming, as you know, including the upgrading, as Mike was talking about, the Deepwater Port in Churchill, Manitoba, carbon capture project, Alberta, wind in Nova Scotia, and that never-ending story about a high-speed rail between Toronto and Quebec City. What's the big takeaway here on the story for you? What do you think?
So, Todd, if you'll permit me, my big takeaway is twofold. The first is tonally, what a massive departure from the previous government, particularly when you focus in on LNG. It's not that the Trudeau government didn't support phase 1, but the way in which this government is hyping up LNG is a massive departure tonally, again, from what we heard from the previous government. My other takeaway is the list itself. These projects are, and the Prime Minister admitted as much, easier than others to get done. They are further along the approval process, and I think that was done on purpose from a political perspective to show that their program, or in an effort to show that their program works, because they know they're up against criticism from the opposition that it's going too slow.
What do you make of what we're hearing from some of the premiers as well, in particular from Danielle Smith of Alberta?
So as someone that spent years covering Alberta, the political story out of today is her support for the federal government. I covered her as leader of the opposition, Jason Kenney as premier, Danielle Smith as premier. There has never been a time where they have been on the same page as the federal Liberals, and they will argue for good reason. The Liberals will counter. In this instance, my takeaway is this is a tiny step, maybe not the biggest, but a tiny one towards a very different narrative when it comes to national unity.
Our
Todd.
chief political correspondent, Vassy Capello, in the Capitol today. Good to see you, Vassy. Thank you. All right, a major manhunt is underway in the United States right now, trying to find the person who killed Charlie Kirk, a high-profile right-wing activist, key supporter of President Trump. Kirk was shot while giving a speech in Utah on Wednesday. These photos have been released. Our Washington bureau chief, Joy Malbon, is standing by with more in the U.S. Capitol on that person of interest and what they're calling a number of big revelations that are set to come out in the next couple of hours, Joy.
Yeah, Todd, there was a police update, but it was postponed because authorities said that there were rapid developments in this investigation. This after they released that picture of a possible suspect. This country is on edge, in shock and angry over the political violence that has divided America.
Oh, my God. Go, run, run.
Charlie Kirk was taking questions on a Utah college campus about mass shootings when police say a single shot was fired. Authorities say the right-wing commentator and fierce ally of Donald Trump was targeted. The powerful leader of a conservative youth movement shot and killed in full view. The FBI releasing this photo, a person of interest, they say, who appears to be of college age and seemed to blend in with the crowd. Police are also confident they have good video footage of the person they believe to be the shooter.
We were able to track his movements as he moved to the other side of the building, jumped off of the building, and fled off of the campus and into a neighborhood.
The FBI also found what they believe is the murder weapon, a high-powered bolt-action rifle.
That rifle was recovered in a wooded area where the shooter had fled. Investigators have also collected footwear impression, a palm print, and forearm imprints for analysis.
There is heartbreak and fury over escalating political violence in this country. The president lashing out last night.
Radical left political violence has hurt too many innocent people and taken too many lives.
And this morning, marking 24 years after the September 11th terror attacks, the president remembering the young father and husband, awarding Kirk with the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Charlie was a giant of his generation, a champion of liberty, and an inspiration to millions and millions of people.
The FBI is asking for the public's help, even offering a reward of $100,000 for any information that can lead to the arrest of Charlie Kirk's killer. Todd?
Our Washington Bureau Chief, Joy Malbon. Thanks for this, Joy. Meantime, there is a Canadian connection to the Charlie Kirk killing. A man who was in Toronto at the time was misidentified as a suspect by a fake social media account. CTV's Adrian Gabriel joins me now with more. And Adrian, what do we know about what happened here?
Todd, retiree Michael Mallison was going about his day in Toronto's East End when he received a frantic call from his daughter telling him to erase all of his social media pages.
Michael Mallison went from watering his plants to receiving a flood of threatening messages on social media.
Calling me all sorts of names.
And your daughter was receiving messages as well.
Saying if Michael Mallison is your brother or father, then this, and this is going to happen.
Following the shocking shooting in Utah, this fake Fox News account on X posted the Charlie Kirk shooter confirmed to be Michael Mallison with a photo of the Torontonian.
Michael, you see your name and your photo linked to an assassination in the United States. Your initial reaction?
Shock and horror. I've heard horrible things about people having their identity stolen.
Quickly, photos of Mallison taken from his social media pages started to circle the internet. Even Grok, the AI chatbot on Elon Musk's X, alleged that Mallison was likely the suspect arrested in the shooting.
Michael, where were you yesterday at about 2:20 Eastern Time?
Actually driving around. We had a busy day. My wife and I went to Yorkdale and then to another store looking for luggage.
Mallison has had legitimate concerns for his safety. The allegations from a fake account, another reminder of a growing lack of verified content on social media sites and the real-life consequences.
They are allowing things to slip through on their platform, and they don't put in enough safeguards to prevent things like this from happening.
I'm just a quiet, normal guy, ordinary guy. I have no need for any publicity, thank you very much.
Mallison has contacted local authorities out of concern, and he's sharing his story in hopes of spreading factual reports that he has no association with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Todd.
Adrian Gabriel in Toronto. Thanks, Adrian. Meantime, police in Toronto are on the search for two teenagers in connection with the death of an 8-year-old boy. That tragedy, part of a series of recent killings involving teens. CTV's John Venavali-Rao on the disturbing trend and how communities are coping. John.
Todd, it's been hard not to notice just how young some of the suspects have been in a number of high-profile shootings and crimes in Toronto this year. Of course, police are still looking for a pair of suspects who were 17 when Javé Roy was shot, a little boy who was lying in bed when he was hit by a stray bullet. Police also charging a suspect who was 15 at the time. It follows incidents in Toronto this year, including a 14-year-old charged with stabbing to death a senior in a parking lot. Less than 2 weeks ago, 2 men were injured when a 14-year-old allegedly went to a residence and opened fire. And last week, a 12-year-old was charged in connection with a shooting in Markham. Experts say offenders may be getting younger, in part because gangs see an advantage to that.
It is a lot safer and there's a much greater return on investment if you're hiring young persons or ordering young persons to commit these crimes, because as we all know, they spend far less time in the prison system than an adult would for the same crimes.
Still, when you look at the stats, the number of people arrested for firearms offenses has actually dropped in Toronto. It's 102 so far this year compared to 127 at this time last year. Still, there's some evidence in recent years the average age of those linked to gun crimes has been coming down. And some experts worry an increase in financial and social inequality in this country could worsen the problem. Todd.
All right, thanks very much, John. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says he will propose a law this fall on reforming Canada's bail system.
Mark Carney, it is time for you to do the right thing and reverse liberal bail laws that are unleashing terror in our communities. And if you won't do it, we will.
Poilievre says he wants to make it harder for people accused of certain crimes to get out on bail, including sexual assault, kidnapping, human trafficking, home invasions, and gun charges. The Prime Minister says his government will introduce its own version of bail reform in the fall sitting of Parliament, which begins on Monday. More news ahead. Stay with us. Well, the leader of the Parti Québécois was in Alberta today, praising Premier Danielle Smith for standing up to Ottawa. The twist here, the PQ, of course, has long pushed to leave Canada, as nowadays some in Alberta want the same thing. Our Quebec Bureau Chief Geneviève Beauchemin on what unites and separates the two. Jen.
Yes, Todd, after years out of power, the Parti Québécois is riding high in the polls, and the Sovereignist leader traveled west with a message. On Alberta soil, the Quebec flag was on hand for the leader of the Parti Québécois at the University of Calgary. The Sovereignist leader drawing parallels between two provinces that have often been at odds.
It's the lack of respect under the Canadian regime that is really annoying for both Albertans and Quebec, maybe for different reasons, but it is a reality.
He had kind words for Premier Danielle Smith, saying she's playing her cards right and standing up to Ottawa. The message delivered in Calgary, but meant to be heard in his home province, showing he has the chops of a premier.
It's part of a broader strategy for him, but that's the main, of course, I would say audience for that is not people in Alberta, it's actually sovereignists in Quebec.
With Quebec's election just a year away, the PQ leader is leading in the polls. Far ahead of Premier François Legault, who was once Canada's most popular premier. Now an Angus Reid survey shows he is the least popular, with the approval of just 1 in 5 Quebecers.
Un traitement choc.
This week, Legault shuffled his cabinet, trying to hit the reset button.
Une explosion de l'immigration.
He spoke of immigration, Quebec's identity, and his critics say he launched a war against the government and public services to win back support.
Une sorte de Dodge québécois.
Monsieur Legault is creating a kind of Quebec Doge, said Ruba Gazal of the provincial party Quebec Solidaire. Now, despite the PQ's lead, Legault said his desire to fight was greater than ever.
C'est l'amour du peuple québécois, c'est tout.
Inspired, he said, by his love for Quebecers. Some analysts, though, say climbing back up and past the Parti Québécois in just over a year will be a challenge for Legault. Todd.
All right, great to see you, Jen. Thanks for this. The fallout now from a story by CTV's investigative unit W5. Prosecutors dropping charges against car salesmen after W5 showed some of the charges didn't add up. CTV's John Woodward led the reporting on this story. And John, what exactly happened here?
Todd, Harris Bachneck and Fatty Zito were facing almost 200 charges between them, accused of selling almost 24 stolen cars through a Scarborough dealership and accused of covering it up by faking Carfax vehicle history reports. The thing is, when we did the homework, we found there was evidence many of those cars were stolen, but we found those Carfax reports actually weren't altered. That was a big piece of evidence allegedly linking the salesman to the crime. Once it was thrown out, Crown Counsel telling Bachneck there was no reasonable chance of conviction in the case.
There were 176 charges withdrawn. There was no evidence of it, and I submit from the first day on, myself, the co-accused, that nobody had any part in this. Everything that we did was above board.
Bachneck says he was duped, just like the people who ended up buying these stolen cars. But this development does leave one big unanswered question. If the salesman weren't involved, who was? Todd?
John Woodward with that. Thanks, John. All right, CTV National continues in a moment. Brazil's top court has convicted former President Jair Bolsonaro. The top judges voted to convict him of plotting a military coup to stay in power after he lost the 2022 election. He is a far-right populist and Trump ally. He now faces a lengthy prison sentence. President Trump recently hit Brazil with punishing tariffs over the case against Bolsonaro. At least 5 people were killed when an Israeli airstrike struck a residential building in Gaza City. That's according to local medics. Well, the moment the building was hit was caught on camera with thick smoke covering the area. The strike comes days after Israel warned people to get out. Gazans say there is no safe place to go. The British ambassador to the United States has been fired over his friendship with the late disgraced American financier Jeffrey Epstein amid the recent release of a 2003 birthday album for Epstein. Peter Mandelson, the former ambassador, wrote a letter in the album describing Epstein as his best pal, along with emails exposed. Epstein, a child sex offender who took his own life back in 2019. Controversy surrounding the case has also engulfed the Trump administration, with lawmakers demanding more transparency. And the Ukrainian military has released a video of what it claims is a drone strike on a Russian ship in the Black Sea. Ukraine's intelligence saying special forces carried out this strike. The agency says the target was a ship being used by the Russians for reconnaissance, and its electronic warfare systems were damaged. All right, after the break, red carpet reunion, cooking up a memorable encounter with The Rock in Toronto. Actor Dwayne Johnson, better known as The Rock, is at the Toronto International Film Festival promoting a new movie. The one-time CFL player has always spoken fondly of his Canadian connection, but an unexpected encounter with a fan led to a heartwarming moment. CTV's Andrea Case explains what happened.
When Dwayne Johnson arrived for his TIFF in Conversation event at the Royal Alexandra Theatre this week, he had no idea what was cooking or who was waiting for him on the other side of the barrier.
Andrea, I had a dream, as Martin Luther King would say.
In the crowd, Pamela Houston from the Ontario Black History Society. She was on a mission.
I said to the young people, when Dwayne gets out of the car, call him Dewey, because that's his family name. Nobody knows that. So he stopped and turned around because Dewey. Then they said, "Your dad, your dad." Dwayne looked at the banner and he held his heart. Then he walked through the gates that are blocking people so he can have a better look at his dad.
In 2015, the OBH created a Black Athletes in Sports exhibit, and in their archives, an audio recording of champion wrestler Rocky Johnson.
And I'm very proud that I was the first Black Canadian heavyweight wrestling champion ever was.
Wow.
And I'm very, very proud of that. If I can do it, other people can do it too.
Rocky died in 2020. He was born in Amherst, Nova Scotia. And oh yes, he just happens to be Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's dad. Also in the crowd, David Rosen.
And by the way, I'm your cousin David. How you doing? Good to see you.
He got out of the car. I shouted that I was his cousin. Within a couple of minutes, he came over, shook hands. He was very gracious, and I really truly feel we made a connection, and that this is not the last time that we're going to see each other.
And then I handed him the DVD and USB with my phone number, I mean the work number, address and everything, and he just went, "Thank you very much."
On a scale of 1 to 10, the chances of him and I seeing each other again is a 10.
I'm still in awe. That's all I can say.
Houston is hoping the next time Johnson makes a trip to Toronto, it'll include a stop at the Ontario Black History Society. Andrea Case, CTV News.
And that's our newscast for this Thursday. I'm Todd Vanderheyden. Thanks for sharing your time with us. And be sure to join Omar Sachedina later tonight. Your local CTV News is coming up next.